Hey, this is Healing the Brokenhearted Child, Isaiah 61 Ministries. We're so excited to be with you today. It's another fantastic day. Good to be in the land of the living. And I'm here with Dana, Gail, Nancy. How are you ladies this afternoon?
Great.
Very good.
Good. Isn't it fun? It goes by so quickly. Here we are, another month, and we're doing this again. We had a fantastic show last time. Had some positive feedback on that show. Hope you guys enjoyed that. But today, we're going to be talking about gut health and really zoning in on the problems an unhealthy gut can bring to us emotionally, not only physically, but emotionally. I remember a couple of months ago, I was learning about serotonin, for instance. Really didn't know much about it, actually. And I'm just figuring out what serotonin does for our body and all of these things. And I remember sending Dana a text that just said, well, I don't know what it said, but it was in terms of serotonin flow and how to increase it and so forth. And you might explain to the people that are listening what serotonin is and how you responded to me, something that really was kind of shocking to me.
So serotonin, simply put, is our feel-good hormone.
Yeah.
And the thing that we don't often note is that we make over 80% of serotonin in our gut. Different studies tell us different things, but they're all 80% or more. And when you consider that it's more about your gut than your brain, then gut health becomes even more important.
Because basically what we eat can have manifestations in our brain.
What we eat, if we have taken antibiotics, if we go to the bathroom, if we have ulcers, if we have there's just so many factors. And if you don't deal with the gut, you're going to limit your amount of mental health.
Why do we ignore the gut? Why don't we think about that? Because I don't necessarily think about the gut and what I eat when it comes to how I feel and what I think.
There's a lot of reasons. One reason is because when you talk about gut health, you are getting in people's business in regards to what they're eating. Food is an emotional thing, and I've had people become angry as a response to me saying, if you don't correct your gut, you're really going to struggle in this area. And they're like, well, feeling like they're being judged or being told what to do. So I do think that emotional piece is big, because everybody likes to eat what they like to eat. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of addictive issues there, a lot of cultural issues. This is what our family does. And another reason is in our society, we haven't been taught that there is that brain-gut connection. I was well into this field, years into this field, with almost 8 years, 7.5 years of college behind me before I began to hear things and think, oh, this is really important for what I do. Mm-hmm. So I just think it's not something that's readily taught. It is becoming more, more. You hear lots more about gut health right now. It's becoming popular, which thrills me, because when it's popular, people will give it a try. So there's just lots of reasons. And people don't go to counseling and think, she's going to tell me how to get my bowels regular or how to correct this. So it's just an interesting thing that by not dealing with gut health, we limit the amount of progress we make in therapy.
Yeah. Nancy's going to talk extensively about this because she's given herself to a lot of research about the gut. I had a friend post something on Facebook about depression, for instance, and in their list of things to do when you're depressed, some of them were pretty practical, and I agree with those. Turn on the music in your house and go outside and so forth. But on one of them, which I thought probably should have been a bigger list, it said eat something, go and eat something. And I thought, man, though that sounds good, eat something. What we do to put in our body or what we put in our gut can affect our mental capacity. So let's talk about that for a moment. What are some things that you have found the connection is, or even specifically, what are some foods or some types of foods that we should stay away from, especially when we're struggling with depression and mental health?
Well, depression and mental health, there's a lot of neurotransmission that goes on that starts in the gut, and it is called our second brain these days, and that's because of really the amount of understanding that we have about the gut and how it interacts with our central nervous system through our vagus nerve that goes and attaches to the base of our brain, which brainstem, lower brain. we're starting to realize that they talk back and forth together constantly. When you eat a lot of sugar, that causes a lot of problems in the gut. Sugar, if you eat enough, and I've watched little kids do it when I worked in the school system. So Halloween is a perfect example. They're so excited anyway. So they're not in a calm state. They are in a high emotional state, and then they eat sugar, and adrenaline starts flowing. And that can happen because why would you eat a lot of sugar unless you're about to fight or flight? Our body doesn't understand. It just does what it does. And when you have put a lot of sugar in your system, it thinks that it's getting ready to run. So what you're literally seeing is a bunch of kids running and screaming around. So
that term running up the walls,
yes,
when a kid is eating sugar is kind of appropriate, right? I mean, it's basically what you're saying, yeah.
Yeah, so high sugar also can cause a lot of cortisol to be manifested, and really it's just the microbiome has a lot of bacteria in it. It can't, what happens is if you eat a high sugar diet for a long period of time, then you're going to see eventually it's going to have an effect on all the bacteria in your gut, and that bacteria does a lot of work. It creates those neurotransmitters. And so you don't want to start putting a bunch of bad bugs in your gut, and that's what happens. You get there's C. difficile is one I think of, causes a lot of problems, but there's several. Maybe you start to have fungus overgrowth, which would be a real problem. But a lot of things like sugar. So if you eat a lot of sugar, a lot of pathogens. Viruses love sugar. Who are the people who ended up in ICU primarily with COVID-19? We saw a lot of diabetics. They really didn't handle it. You have a high sugar content in your blood. Viruses love it. And, of course, right now I've been reading a lot. Oh, man, I'll tell you. The keto group, boy, they're like anti-COVID-19. Eat keto. And, honestly, they are correct. If you have very, very little blood sugar circulating, it's very hard for a lot of things, fungus and bacterial issues and that are bad, pathogenic, and also viral. They don't do well. So I'm not saying you have to eat keto. I'm not going that far, but you need to keep your blood sugar low. If you really want to stay well and you want to have a good microbiome, that's a big part of it. And fiber, oh my gosh, fiber is so important. It's now we don't call it fiber or roughage anymore. Now we call it a prebiotic. And so a prebiotic is what those little good little bacteria in your gut want.
Well, we've talked about keeping or changing our diet, and we're going to talk about that even more. But Gail, is someone who's had children come in your home, and we talked about a couple episodes ago, Dana was talking about technology and how to, curve that from kids, I would say their diet, but curve that from their lifestyles because it's causing certain behaviors and so forth. How important also is it to curve their diet, things that go in their body, especially in times of trying to help them come through trauma?
It's very important. We try to eliminate sugar a lot. It's really a treat when we eat something that's high in sugar. And so I find that it really affects the child's behavior almost immediately. That and also dyes are really
now trigger. Talk about that, the dyes, because you've said that a couple times. What is the dyes? You're talking about physically things that make your food a certain color, or what do we mean dyes?
Yeah, like if you're eating a cereal that has a red dye in it or something like that, or people give their kids Kool-Aid, things like that, you can almost immediately see a change in the behavior of the children. We don't do caffeine like soda pop and stuff unless it's a rare occasion, special treat.
Mm-hmm. And how have you seen that your children's behavior when you start dealing with the diet, when you start affecting their diet?
I find that diet is very entwined with the children when they come. And so you have to balance them feeling secure in eating what they normally eat and also incorporating something that's healthy, because most of the children that come into my home have a really poor diet. Mm-hmm. A lot of them were raised on ramen noodles and McDonald's, honestly. And I have one girl that actually her mother had passed away, and she vowed that she would never be happy again. And she would only eat chicken strips, a certain brand, bacon, and I think that was it. And so for hours she would sit at the table and would not eat anything else. And it was so entwined with her emotions, her mental health, everything, because she had made this determination that she would never be happy again. And so we had to walk through, it was a year-long process of walking through and praying through, just take a bite and then moving on, not making it the central, but also just in equipping her and empowering her to see that, God wants you to be happy. He wants you to have a future and a hope.
Yeah. Now, Dana, what's the connection? You deal, or you have had many clients that have come in with certain psychological or mental issues, and what's the connection between diet and things that they eat with some of these issues that they may come in, and how do you know if there's an issue with diet or their gut that's causing some of the issues in their mind or in their brain?
I think I could safely say that it's safe to assume there's always an issue. Like once in the last well over a year has somebody arrived, and when I ask the questions, they're like, I eat fermented food every day, I go to the bathroom 3 times, I drink this many ounces of water. So basically this one person out of all the people I see had been reading online and knowing I am a mess and I need to figure this out, and had come up with a very amazing plan to, and she said, that's how I'm this, because I was surprised at how good she was doing considering all the stuff that was going on in her life. But when I saw all that she was doing right, I knew why, that she had made it so far on her own, because she was doing things right. Most people come in, and when I say, how much water do you drink? They say plenty. And I say, tell me more about that. How much have you had today? Well, today's not a typical day. And I'm like, well, how much have you had today? Well, none. And I'm like, okay, it's 2:00. Let's start talking. I'll try to get people just simply to do 4 ounces an hour. I'm like, think of how small a half a cup is. At the beginning of every hour, have your phone chirp. Or fill this bottle up and drink it 2 times every day. It's like they have to have a plan or they won't do it. So I always start with water. And then I begin to start talking about fruits and vegetables. And, it's like if I'm not careful, I overwhelm people, and then they don't do anything. They're just like, I just want to do the counseling and the biofeedback. I'm really not interested in the other part. So I'll just give them whatever I think they can handle every week. But the correlation is so strong that if you don't deal with that part, you're limiting the progress you're going to have in therapy. You can do a lot, even if they don't change anything, but you can't get them well and keep them well.
Why is that, Nancy? I would assume that it has to do with the chemistry in our body, our necessity for water, our necessity for things that are in fruits, and so I'm wondering why is that connection that Dana's talking about? Why is it essential that I have to change my diet if I really want to affect long term my mental health?
Well, the science is there. The science is definitely there. That there is a strong connection, and it's not my opinion or Dana's. If you really want to improve your serotonin levels, let's look at that.
Yeah.
Let's just talk about neurotransmitters. Serotonin, it is made in the gut. 95% of it's made in the gut. But it's kind of out onto how much dopamine's made in the gut. It's around 50. I've seen people who are making the comment that it may be as high as 80 because some of it is made in the brain.
Let's stop for just a second. We've described serotonin as kind of the happy chemical that makes us happy. So what is dopamine?
Dopamine is I get up and do stuff.
Okay.
And the way they do neurotransmission is it's inhibitory or it's excitatory. So if you dopamine is a catamine, and so epinephrine and norepinephrine also. So there are these things that make you want to get up and do something, and you want to achieve a goal. And that's your get up and go. But then you have serotonin, and serotonin is related to if you have low serotonin.